We are gonna film a little pregnancy Q&A. I have a few questions from you guys. You might be able to hear the wind chime a little bit in the background because it's windy, but we're gonna try to film some of these and answer some of your questions. A lot of them were the same, so I kind of like grouped them together. This is my husband, Ben. If you didn't know, my name is Jessie. If you're new around here, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you subscribe. I do all kinds of lifestyle content, motherhood, and personal finance. I am pregnant with baby number 2. I'm actually 14 weeks today, right? Or
yep.
am I 15 weeks?
14 weeks.
14 weeks today. So out of that first trimester, thankfully, still dealing with a couple of symptoms, but we'll go into some of that stuff in here. So the first question and the most asked question, it's technically 2 questions, but we'll combine them. Mm-hmm. Are you hoping for a boy or girl? And will you be finding out boy or girl this time? If you didn't know, with Ivy, we did not find out her sex until she was born. We are planning on doing that again with this baby. That's something that Ben is really wants to do, and it's not that I don't care, but I don't have like a strong feeling either way, so I'm totally fine waiting till the end. I will say, this wasn't really asked, but I will say that like I think it's a boy. I think a lot of people think it's a boy, and some of that might be like hoping since we already have a girl, but I just have like this weird feeling that it's a boy, which probably means that it'll be a girl. So as far as hoping for a boy or girl, I personally don't care. I truly don't care either way. I think it's a boy, so if it's not a boy, I'll be surprised. But I actually was really nervous to have a girl with Ivy. Mm-hmm. And now having a girl, I'm like in love with it, so I would also be happy with having another girl. But Benjamin has a little bit different of an experience, which I think is like a truthful experience for most people. Which, are you hoping for a boy or a girl?
I'm hoping for a boy. I think, you know, people go into it and they're like, oh, you're a guy, of course you're hoping for a boy. And I'm like, yeah, like that's partially true. Because like as a dad, you want to get to do all of those just kind of like guy things, right? Guy things. Because we're not going to prevent Ivy from doing whatever the heck she wants, right?
Right.
So that's part of it for me, is I do want that. But then kind of like the bigger picture for me is, and I think a lot of people are like this, but like we have a girl. And so I think it would be really cool to have a boy to get to experience both. Like that's the biggest thing for me from a like really zoomed out high level life experience kind of, you know, what I get to experience. I really would love one of both. Now, like after that's stated, at the end of the day, we want a happy, healthy child. So yeah, I don't care what it is. And I just want to be like very clear that I will, you know, absolutely be grateful for and love whatever we get.
Yeah, he's a good girl dad. And too,
yeah,
like,
yeah, I mean, I love it. Yeah. Absolutely love it.
And he's not one of those dads that like throws a fit when they find out that it's a, have you seen there's like gender reveals where dads like throw a fit because it's a girl? It's not like that.
A bunch of babies.
Yeah, he would be totally happy and fine with 2 girls. I think it's just a truthful statement. A lot of people don't want to say like when they do have a preference because they feel bad about it. I
don't think it's weird. Like I don't think it's weird or wrong.
It is when you like throw a fit about it.
Yes. Yeah. That's like I roll. I don't really understand why people don't want to find out, or excuse me, why they want to find out so much and why they're not going to be surprised.
It's just being surprised earlier. I don't want to spend 20 minutes on one question.
my thing is, I think it's nature's greatest surprise. Why would I want to spoil that? Like, I just think it's so beautiful to be there in that moment and like just have it come out and like get to experience that. I think to me there's just nothing that can replace that or be like that. So
I will say though, with our experience, we didn't have a great experience with our birth, and they didn't tell us Ivy's sex for a while, and I found
C-section.
And our doctor just like didn't tell us what was going on, and I found out when they came around the corner with her and she was wearing a pink hat like 15 minutes later. So I will say that's like the one thing that kind of sucked is I don't feel like it was like this like big amazing surprise in that moment. I was very drugged up, I was very tired, I was very out of it. So I actually like if I could redo it, I wish I would have known earlier with her, just because then I could have actually been surprised. I could have done something that was surprising. Like we could have like gotten a cake that had the color in it and like found out that way. So I'm just saying, like it didn't end up being this like perfect, beautiful surprise for me at least. Okay, second question. Are you staying in this house with another baby?
Jessie loves to answer this question, so I'll let her do that.
I didn't even make up this question. Somebody asked it. You don't know. There's a couple things going on with this house right now that we have to like discuss about like our health. If it was up to me, I would move. Yes. And I've talked about this in other videos, so I don't need to go in depth on it. I think that the layout is not great for our family with it being a split level home. Our dogs have to be downstairs all the time. Benjamin works from home and he's loud, and which I think anybody would be that's on phone calls all day.
Yeah, small footprint. Everything's next to each other.
Yeah,
so.
Old house. It's not like soundproofed. Yeah. So he's like right next to Ivy's room. Ivy's gotten used to sleeping through his loudness, thankfully, but having a newborn and like having to figure out where that baby's gonna sleep that doesn't wake up Ivy or doesn't get woken up by Ivy or Ben. And then there's just the piece of like, I have to be in the same room as Ivy at all times. Like I can't leave her here for more than a couple seconds to go like downstairs because she could fall, she could go upstairs. Like there's just too many variables, whereas like his parents' house or like my parents' house is all, they're not huge houses, but they're all one level. I'm not like against more than one level, but it's just the way this one is laid out. There's
no sight lines anywhere. It's like when you're in a given room, you cannot see into the next room. So
yeah. And I mean, there's good parts about this house. We live in a nice neighborhood. Our neighbors are all very nice.
Like relatively quiet.
It's relatively quiet. We have a big backyard. So there's like positives to this. Yeah. I just don't feel like the house is very conducive. And I
very close to my parents.
I definitely don't feel like once that baby can start moving, that's like too much for me to have to like watch two at the whole time. But at the same time, I should say. But as for right now, we have not figured out what we're doing with that. Technically, we're supposed to stay in this house until next June. We have some movement with that because we didn't technically sign a lease. Yeah, so we have time to figure that out. Do you have an opinion or nothing really? Like he agrees with everything I'm saying. I think he just has more hesitancy about moving because there's so many other things that go along with that.
It just opens up a can of worms and it's difficult. It costs something, both time, energy, money, like all the things, taking off of work, actually paying for stuff. Like I said,
finding another place.
The mental and physical toll that it takes. So it's just like, it's just not an easy thing to just be like, oh yeah, let's just like, so there's
just like picking your hard. Are we doing the hard ahead of time to hopefully move into a different place, or are we doing the hard while we have the kids?
To be honest, Jessie has more of an opinion because it affects her more. Like I go to work and do my thing during the day, and she's the one
that's gonna affect me.
Right, she's the one with the little ones, so it has more of a direct impact on her.
The next question, was there anyone in your family who figured out you were pregnant before you told them? Anybody in our family? No. Like not one person was even slightly aware. I will say we told Ben's family when I was like not even 6 weeks because I was very sick. So they weren't even like, they didn't have that much time to catch on to something. I will say there was a couple things that like once we told them, Ben's sister was like, oh, I can't believe I didn't like pick up on that. My family isn't really around, so they didn't pick up on it, but Ben knew before I knew. Yeah. So if you watched our Finding Out I'm Pregnant video, you can see that there. But so he technically knew before I knew that I was pregnant, but nobody else. Are you planning to use a doula this time around? This was a good question. I don't think
one we haven't really talked about. By the way.
I think we haven't really figured this out yet. I think you've kind of mentioned it and like thinking that it would be a good idea. I'm not against having a doula. Having a doula last time was really, really helpful. It kind of just depends on my birth plan, which somebody did talk about, so I'll talk about that a little bit more later. I think having a doula was very, very helpful for me. I just don't know if that'll be helpful in our current birth plan. We might wait a little bit to like really get some more information on like if my pregnancy is high risk, anything like that, before we make more decisions. I think if anything, having an aftercare doula might be helpful. Like our doula last time did most of her stuff prior, and then she was there for the birth, and then she like brought us food and did a checkup once after the birth. And I know some doulas will just do after birth, and they'll come and take care of mom and baby and stuff around the house, so that might be helpful.
I think I feel maybe a little bit more strongly about it. It was critical for us to have a positive experience, or had, you know, the positive parts of the experience. Jesse talked about birth trauma and things before, so you can go check those videos out. But things would have been much worse, basically, without a doula, and much harder, much more on me, much more on her. And so it was just a critical aspect of birth, number one. You know more the second time around, you feel more empowered to be able to stand up for yourself or speak up for yourself, whatever it may be. It's just a nice process to have somebody who you know is in your corner. As Jesse mentioned, we'll talk about birth plan stuff in a few here.
Yeah, I'll actually just move that question up because it'll be helpful to go along with this. So the reason that I think there's like unsureness, so I had a C-section last time. Quickly, I'll just talk. I was induced over 41 weeks. I was zero dilated, zero effaced. My body was not ready to let Ivy out. She ended up being 9 pounds, 5 ounces. So it wasn't because she was not ready to come out. She just wasn't mentally ready to come out. And my body wasn't ready to let her out.
She was fully cooked.
Yeah, she was fully cooked. I was also fully cooked. Anyways, I ended up being induced. Part of my induction was very, very traumatic to me, which set off a whole line of stuff that probably caused more pain and shock and trauma going through the rest of it, because something happened right away that was very traumatic for me, which I did talk about in my birth story. And my doula wasn't able to be there at that point to help us through that, so we had to deal with that. She came in then and was extremely helpful and necessary through birth. Then I had to go into C-section. She helped us make that decision to make sure it was the right decision for us. And then she left right after I was out of the operating room, because she was not allowed to go into the operating room, which is where the other part of the trauma came in. So my two traumatic things came in my birth, the most traumatic parts, when my doula was not allowed to be there. And so I'm bringing that up because having a C-section before, there is a high chance that I will have to have a C-section again. I have talked with my doctor only once, but the plan right now is I do not want to be induced ever again. The plan is, I don't know when they would do this, but I would have a scheduled C-section. However, if I go into spontaneous or real labor ahead of time, currently I am open to that process. But as soon, I do not want to be induced at all. Not only did like Ivy not react well to the Pitocin, which is why they ended up having to take her out C-section. So that's like why I'm like, if I'm going in for a scheduled C-section, a doula can't come in for any of that anyway. She's not really, there's not going to be any pre-prep or anything. It's all going to be operation prep, so she won't be there beforehand, and then she won't be helping me with like prepping for birth, anything like that, if I have to have a C-section. We'll find out more like as the pregnancy goes on, if like the baby's measuring super big again, if I end up having any more like high risk things that they might just push me to C-section. So that's why like having a doula, if I'm having a scheduled C-section, to me it doesn't make sense to spend the money on a doula unless it's an aftercare doula. However, if I go into spontaneous labor, it would definitely be necessary to have a doula. So that's why I just feel like we can't make that decision right this second. Like I just need a little bit more time to know a little bit more about my pregnancy and like things like that. So I'm not saying it's a no, but that is currently the plan. I will not be induced. If it comes down to needing to be induced, then I would go with a scheduled C-section. And my doctor completely agreed with me and thought that that plan was perfect. We go with, if you go into spontaneous labor, we try for the VBAC, which is vaginal birth after cesarean. And if it seems like my body's not doing that, or if they do growth scans and things like that, which I know can be a bit off, but because Ivy was so big and my body wasn't ready to release her, if that seems like that's happening again, they probably would do, or we would do a scheduled C-section again, because my body is just like not made to vaginally birth a 9.5-pound baby. Any symptoms, cravings, etc. that are different than Ivy's pregnancy? I'm gonna do a whole video on this, so I won't go deep in depth in this. I still had a lot of nausea. I didn't puke as much with Ivy. Cravings, I don't feel like I have a ton of cravings. It's more of just like, what can I eat that doesn't sound terrible during first trimester. I did crave McDonald's and Coke a little bit, but and that's, again, those are both similar to what Ivy was. As far as like differences, I would say I'm much more fatigued in this pregnancy than I was. And I was tired last time, but I definitely think that I'm much more fatigued in this pregnancy. I got sick earlier and stopped being sick earlier. So I started being sick at about 5.5 weeks, stopped being sick around 9.5, 10 weeks, like very sick. I still have some headaches. Whereas with Ivy, it was like 7.5 weeks to like 14 weeks or something like that. Is there anything that you can think of that's been like super different?
No, I think
having a toddler
right. Like
during first trimester is very different. We'll see as the pregnancy goes on too, because I tend to not get cravings until like later. In the beginning, I wouldn't consider them cravings. I'm not sitting here like, oh my God, I have to eat this. It's more of like, oh, that actually sounds like I could eat it. I need it right now.
Right.
It's not because it sounds tasty. It's because I'm like, that actually doesn't sound like it's gonna make me puke.
Yeah.
Are you and Ben gonna go on a baby moon?
That's a good question. It's not something we've really talked about to this point. I feel like just being out of first trimester and just starting to feel better. We haven't had a lot of these forward moving conversations because it was just survival mode. She was just laid up feeling terrible, and I was, you know, trying to support and keep the house going. We don't currently have plans for that.
I think I would like to do something.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would be just Ben and me. If we do like a day thing, like say we went up to St. Charles for the day or something like that, and we wanted to do like a day date, maybe we wouldn't bring Ivy, but I think if it was overnight, we would. We both are just more comfortable and enjoy spending time with her. Not having her with that just doesn't feel right to us. So it kind of depends. Health stuff, obviously I'm giving birth in like the depths of Midwest winter, so I don't think we would go anywhere far. We'll at least do like a day thing. I really liked in my last pregnancy that I did an overnight stay by myself, and I went to a spa and I stayed at a really nice hotel, and I really liked doing that for myself. I don't really get a ton of alone time, so I've been thinking maybe about doing something similar. I don't know if I would stay overnight somewhere, but yeah, so we just have to think about that more now that I'm not feeling terrible all the time. Yeah,
to me, honestly, like as you're talking through this, I can see like a couple's baby moon making a lot of sense for first baby. Your relationship is fundamentally changing. Like you're losing the relationship that you had, and it's going to be a different one. Baby moon with, you know, as a couple or partnership makes a lot of sense to me in that way. But as you were talking, I think what potentially makes more sense this time around, at least a day thing, just like
a baby celebration. Like it's still gonna be like the last time that we're a family of 3.
Yes.
So like that's why I think doing something with Ivy makes more sense, because it's actually going to affect her more than it's going to affect us.
I agree. I think doing something as us 3 and you doing something to take care of yourself makes a lot of sense, because like I think it is still a very you-centered process. Right. So to have a self-care
day,
treat yourself. I was trying to think of what they call it in Parks and Rec.
Treat yourself. So we'll figure that out. I'm sure I'll take you along and let you guys know. How are you financially preparing to have another baby?
We're not.
Yeah, so
that's my short answer.
It's funny because I would consider myself a planner. I definitely budget. You guys see those videos. I don't feel like we like planned anything. I will say one thing that's different now than wasn't different with Ivy is we didn't have much of a savings when we had Ivy, so we really focused on that because we knew that there would be hospital bills, things like that. I think that we're still focusing on savings right now between having another baby plus moving in some capacity in the next year or so. And then just continuing to grow our savings is our number one goal financially right now. I feel like we're naturally financially planning / saving for a baby. We do have savings, so when those hospital bills come out, that we'll have the money to pay for them. Hopefully they won't be as much as they were with Ivy, but anyway, I think there's a couple more things you'll see within my budgets. Like I'm planning to throw a baby sprinkle of some sort, so we'll have to do like a little fund for that. I'm sure like if, you know, there's certain things that we need to buy for the baby, we'll have to start like a little fund for that. So that'll kind of be throughout the next few months of our budget. We'll update that. And then I think it kind of goes back to, we're just financially planning for our family. So
Right.
a lot of these big decisions about like, do we move? Do we stay? Do we purchase? Do we rent? Those will all now be incorporating a fourth human versus just 3 of us. So, which I think we kind of had in the back of our minds because we knew we wanted at least one more kid. There's not like a set specific plan right now, but I think that it's something that we just generally have going.
I will say with a first kid especially, you're just getting so much stuff from other people. That was something that was really beneficial the first time around because you don't have to worry about those things. So I think it's more so as the budgeter of the family, like it's just more work for you to
our budget, yeah.
Right, changing the actual,
which is where things like purchasing versus renting versus whatevering a house comes into effect. Right. Because like our Benjamin's insurance will go up because we'll have a fourth person. We'll be paying if I can't fully breastfeed again, like with Ivy I had to supplement with formula, so we'll have formula. We'll have, like last time we had months of diapers for Ivy, and I highly doubt that we'll have that for this one. We need to buy a couple new things, like a new bassinet, things like that are a little bit pricier. So we might have some people that like chip in and like help buy little things, but I'm obviously not expecting people to go and buy these things for us. A lot of stuff we do have, like we have a lot of clothes, a lot of books, we have a car seat, we have all that kind of stuff. It'll definitely be kind of, we'll be figuring it out in our budgets. One last question, and it's actually like a very deep question, but do you feel in your heart that your family is complete, or do you think there will be a third baby in the future? It's interesting. I think right when I got pregnant, I was like, yeah, this is it. And I think that I still feel that way. I think I'm not as like for sure as I was during first trimester. Going into a second pregnancy was very anxiety inducing for me, having a traumatic birth, having a traumatic first trimester last time definitely plays into that. And like, you know, getting pregnant again, you're excited about it, but you're also like, oh my God, what if all the same things happen again? So it's just like hard to work through that, and to think about doing it a third time when I'm like dry heaving in a toilet with a toddler. I'm just like, I don't know that I want to do this again. I don't know that I want to do another birth again, all of those types of things. So
that's not what it was in that moment, by the way. It was, I'm not doing this again.
Yes, yeah. So I think I would say I'm like 90% sure that I'm probably done after this one. I think if something like accidentally happened, that we would take that as like the universe telling us what we're meant for. I think that I don't know. It's hard because like when you say like, do you feel in your heart that your family is complete? I don't currently feel that way, but I also don't feel that it's incomplete. I felt complete with Ivy. I do understand what people are saying though. Like, do you feel like if you don't have another baby? So I can't answer this question well. I think if we have this baby and I couldn't get pregnant again, or like I don't think I would actively try to get pregnant again a third time. Yeah. I don't think that I would feel like I'm missing out on something if I didn't have a third child. But I think if we did have a third child, we would take that as what was meant to happen. Yeah. But that's right now. We'll see how the rest of the pregnancy goes. We'll see how the birth goes. I might be very much like, nope. I think that it is complete after this one, but we'll see.
I'm just smiling because as you were talking, you're like, yeah, you know, once this baby is here and we're feeling happy and healthy and we're feeling good, then we can be complete with it. And I was like, unless it's a girl. And then, you know,
And then
I don't know
Benjamin
if
will
we're
be
complete. I don't know
carrying
if we're
the
complete.
third pregnancy. Because
Yeah. I was laughing during that because that was like what popped into my head.
I do think if we had a boy, that we would for sure be complete.
Well,
I don't know.
Right. I think there's a
It's
seriousness to that. Like, I totally agree. I think there would be a part of me that would be sad, or at least like, again, kind of like Jesse said, I don't have a like final answer to this, but I think there would probably be part of me that was like, well, let's see how things go in the next like couple years. Like, maybe we're done, maybe we're not. Yeah, to just go in on the other point, like I think I love the question, by the way. I think it's a wonderful question. I just don't know that you can answer that until baby is here and has been here for a while. And maybe a mother's maybe a mother's intuition can feel that, to really let it sink in, or for like the family decision to feel that way. Like, I think it'll just, once baby's here, there'll be a little bit more of a sense of where we're at.
Yeah, and there's like other things that play into that, like our health. Ben and I both have consistent health issues. I've had to put a lot of my health stuff on the back burner because you can't do a lot of stuff when you're pregnant. Pregnancy takes a lot out of your body. I will be 37 when I have this pregnancy, and with C-sections you can't have another baby for at least a year afterwards. So I would be pushing 40 having another baby, which I know plenty of people do. In fact, somebody that I used to work with just had a baby and she's in her 40s. So I know that it's possible. I just don't know that, that I'm gonna want to do that. And I don't know that he'll want to in his 40s, so.
There's also the thing that like, you all can watch other videos. We still like want to feel like really rooted down in our family life. So that includes location, people, like all
Friends.
all these things. I think it would be a little different if there weren't the variable of like really trying to find and figure out what that was and where that was and what that looks like, because a lot of things can change in the next few years is what I'm getting at. To add, potentially another pregnancy or another baby, there's still things I'm like moving around, because I'm like, things are still kind of,
we don't feel settled.
Right. It may just be too much and another variable that's not going to make sense for us and our family.
Well, thank you for the questions. They were all really great and in depth as usual. You guys always ask the best questions.
Yeah, it's fun.
If you have any other questions, leave them down below. We can do more Q&As throughout pregnancy, or I can just answer them in the comments. But thank you so much for watching if you stayed till the end, and we'll see you in the next video.
See y'all.